My next guest this morning from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and I was just telling him off air that I sleep a little bit better at night knowing that we have such a great organization with all of these quality individuals on this team defending our freedoms and liberty. Lucas Weber, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hey, good morning, Meg. Great to be with you. Good morning to all your listeners.
Well, so we'll start with something. Well, actually, there's a whole slew of good news out of Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and I mean, thankfully, I was able to introduce you in the way that I was because it's all good news from here, and we we're just fresh off of my last guest, Jessica McBride from Wisconsin. Right now, there was a lot of kind of not so happy news that we were discussing, but many of us, especially here in central Wisconsin, have attended an event or a wedding at a barn in the central Wisconsin area. And I know that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty took up the cause to protect those who have, I guess it would be considered the wedding barn legislation, or have a barn as a venue. And so let's talk about what happened and why there was legislation that was designed to, put strict regulations on wedding barns.
Yeah. So for a long time in Wisconsin, many of us, as you said, have all been to a barn wedding before. These are very common throughout Wisconsin. It's a very cost-effective way to have a wedding. It's a beautiful scenery. It's really it's kind of quintessential Wisconsin. So we all love barn weddings. Farmers in Wisconsin have been, fixing up their barns and renting them out as event spaces. So that's all they do. They say, "Hey, Meg, you're getting married. I'll rent you my barn. You bring your guests. You bring your own alcohol. You can roll a barrel in there. You can bring a case of beer. You serve it to your guests on your own. We're not involved in that. We just rent you the space." Okay. And that's legal in Wisconsin because Wisconsin doesn't require you to get a liquor license in those instances. Special interests who view these wedding barns as competition to them have been pushing for the past several sessions in the legislature to change state law to essentially require wedding barns to operate like taverns. So it would require them to get a Class B, to purchase all the alcohol from wholesalers and then resell it to their guests, to have all that in there. Farmers don't want to be in this business. If they did want to be in this business, they already could be. They could, try to do that, but they just want to rent their space and be done with it. It's a nice, simple, small business that they can operate to bring in some extra income. But the special interests in Madison don't like that. And so they've introduced legislation that would require them to either become a tavern, or it says if you want to continue operating as you have been now, it would limit them to only 6 events per year, no more than 1 event per month, and it would prohibit them from serving spirits, from serving liquor, from their guests from consuming liquor. So a bride and a groom, for example, couldn't toast with an old-fashioned on their wedding night. It's pretty ridiculous. It's very un-Wisconsin. And I'm actually in Madison today, crossed through the Iron Curtain here to testify against the bill today.
Be safe, Lucas. Be safe out there. So what do you anticipate? Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know. Do we want to out the special interests that are behind this opposition to wedding barn events?
There's really no shortage of the special interests. It's really the kind of the 3-tier system, I'll say, of alcohol regulation. There's a lot of people who are reliant on the heavy hand of government to basically box out their competition, and they are using that heavy hand here to try and take out the wedding barns.
Well, so I guess my next question is, how do you anticipate things are going to go?
Well, in the past, this legislation, the way they've tried to, and we've talked about it on your show before, I think, but in the past, they've always gone too far with this, and that it would have actually outlawed consuming a beer at a tailgate, for example. So this one's a little more narrow, and it tries to just impact wedding barns, but it does go further, and it does impact things like vacation rental homes. So if you're going to rent a house on a lake and host a family reunion, if you don't have enough beds in that house for every adult guest who's attending, you can't serve Miller Lite at your family reunion. It's ridiculous. The bill unfortunately already passed the state assembly, and it's now pending in the state Senate. That's where the hearing is today, and that's where I'm going to be proud to show up and testify against it.
Gosh, I mean that sort of puts a damper on a house party, frankly. I mean,
Absolutely.
would it have extend its reach to let's just say uh, Meg and John Ellefson decide to have a party at our house, and we're serving alcohol. Is
No, your private home is still it would still wouldn't be because you're not renting the home yourself, so it wouldn't be available to the public to rent your house, your space. But if you and your
have a
husband were going to
family
go,
reunion at
yeah,
a
if you were going to, like
Airbnb?
I said, if you were going to, yeah, rent an Airbnb on a lake house, on a lake or something, and invite 15 of your cousins over for a family reunion, if there aren't enough beds, the bill says you're a public place and you need a liquor license to consume alcohol there.
Wow. So my next question, I guess, is who are the legislators behind this? Republicans or Democrats?
It's both. I mean, everybody. There was a bipartisan support for it in the assembly, um, and I don't know how the chips are gonna fall in the Senate, but I think there's a lot of other stuff in this bill. So it's a 150 plus page bill
Wow.
that does a lot of tweaks to some smaller things, and so there's a lot of people who say like, well, I got my small thing in this bill, but unfortunately, in order to get some special interest to agree to this, all these groups had to agree that they were going to throw the wedding barns under the bus and essentially regulate them out of existence.
Wow. This is very timely because I'm contemplating having an event at a what you would call a wedding barn. So this well
Mhm.
I guess are you willing to say who some of the Republican legislators are that are supporting this so that we can rattle their cages?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have the bill in front of me with the full list of authors, but you can, it's all online. Anybody can go look at it. It's
AB
330,
304.
322, AB 304. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. That's the
AB
Assembly bill
304
opening.
and then SB 332. Wow,
That's correct. Yes.
this is interesting.
So
And I mean, I guess so what do you I mean, what's the expected I hate to use this term because I'm sure it's not correct, but turnaround time on something like this. I mean, there's the hearing today and then what?
then they'll have to take a vote in the committee, and then it'll ultimately get, if it passes out of committee, it'll get forwarded to the full Senate. Now, what we're asking for, and as I said, there's a lot of other stuff in this bill that we don't have any problem with. And for the lawmakers who are supporting the bill, there's a lot of stuff in there that they're trying to get, and this is just one small piece of it. And I get it, the process of lawmaking, sometimes you have to include stuff maybe you don't like in a bill. I'm not, but at the same time, it's very easy to amend this language out of the bill and allow wedding barns to continue to exist as they have for decades in Wisconsin. And that's what we're asking the lawmakers to do. We're saying, hey, if you're going to move forward with this bill, you have to take the wedding barns language out. Otherwise, these farmers are going to lose their investment. They're going to go out of business, or they're going to have to try to be in the tavern business. But, in many cases, their zoning laws don't even allow that to happen. So it's really just an unfortunate situation.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask then. So I'm actually looking at the text of the bill right now, but so those who introduced this bill in the Assembly and then co-sponsored in the Senate, were their intentions to have this particular wedding barn, I guess, regulations? Was that their intention? I mean, is that what it started out as, a wedding barn regulation bill, or was it something else and this got thrown
I,
in?
I don't know all the backstory, the kind of behind the scenes wrangling on it, but I can say that there's a lot of other things in this bill that they've been talking about, needing to reform for distilleries or small brewers or things like that along the way. And so I think this was just kind of part of that discussion. I would hope they didn't start the legislating process by saying, let's put these guys out of business and throw a bunch of other stuff around it. But and I don't think that was the case here. I think this was just as part of the horse trading of lawmaking. They agreed, hey, if we're going to do this, then you got to throw these wedding barns under the bus. And unfortunately, I think that's what happened.
Isn't there some saying about you don't want to watch sausage making or bills be
Yeah,
crafted because neither of them are particularly palatable? No, I don't.
exactly.
I know that I totally botched that. But so, well, I guess it'll be interesting because. So, do you anticipate that there will be somebody testifying to in support of the wedding barn regulations? I mean, will you have a counterpart on the opposite
Uh,
argument?
I would assume that some of these three-tier special interests are going to show up and probably try to talk about it. I don't know, but I'm certainly happy to report back after the hearing today. If anybody's interested in this, the hearing is the Senate Committee on Universities and Revenue, and it is going to be streamed live on Wisconsin Eye on their
Ooh,
website.
okay. So what time does this hearing start?
It starts at 9:30.
Okay, all right. So I won't keep you too much longer because I know you. I presume you're in position though, so that you can get right in and.
Yep,
in,
yeah,
in
we're right here. So
Okay, okay, well,
yeah,
good.
no
So
problem.
before we run out of time, and before you actually have to go and testify, let's talk. Let's talk about the open records victories. And I know that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has unveiled an open records guide to promote transparent government. I believe I've talked with. Well, I think I might have talked with Catherine Spitz about this, but let's
Yes.
talk about what it is and some of the recent victories.
Yeah, so my colleague Kate Spitz and I, we just put out the Citizens Guide to Open Government, we're calling it. It just helps explain to people how to use the public records law and how to use the open meetings law, and then what to do if a government actor is not following the law. So we just try to lay it out in simple, just kind of easy to digest, not a lot of legalese, just trying to make it easy for folks to use those tools to hold government accountable and to ensure transparency. We just saw this in Eau Claire. We had a parent who had requested a document from the Eau Claire School District. District refused to turn it over. We filed suit up there because we believe that was a public record that the parent had the right to access, and we don't think any parent should have to go to court to have oversight over their child's school. But unfortunately, that's what happened here. We went to court. After we filed our suit, the district came to their senses and turned over the record. So it just shows that people who want to hold government accountable and keep them transparent, they just need to know how to act, how to move forward, and they can usually accomplish a great deal.
I love a story about playing hardball. I mean, that's what we have to do. You know,
Absolutely.
this guide, Lucas, kind of inspires me to, I've already got two events that I'm planning, but this one would be another good one to have just a session for. I mean, I think it should be something we could take on the road, but a session on centered around open records and really open meetings too, and just this guide. Is this a guide that is published in hard copy form?
It is. Yep, we've got them at the printer now, and we'll have those at our
Splendid.
events. And I would certainly be happy to show up at any event, anytime, and
All
talk
right.
to folks about
Well,
this.
I would encourage you. I'm doing this right now before we run out of time. Run
Perfect.
out of time. But Lucas Weber is actually going to be one of the panelists at our event in Ladysmith on Saturday, September 23rd. Legislature 101: How a Bill Becomes Law. And I would encourage you to bring some of the copies of this open government, the Citizens Guide to Open Government, to our event. So if that's possible, we'd love to
Yep.
have those there.
Yep.
So, well, good.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to see it electronically, they can go to our website at will-law.org. It's posted on there as well.
Okay, so one final thing, and then I'll let you go because I know you
Yeah.
gotta focus on the hearing. But let's talk about what happened. If you could briefly summarize, I did have. I'm trying to think if I had. I think it was Dan that was on last week to talk about this. I honestly have had so many of
Yep.
your great team on, I can't remember. But we did discuss the event in Appleton. If you could talk about what it was and what has happened as a result of Will getting involved.
Yeah, so the event in Appleton was essentially a meet and greet that the school billed as a meet and greet only for students of a particular race, and we sent them a letter reminding them that of course is unlawful. You can't segregate students out based on their race and have different events for only students of particular races, excluding others. After we sent that letter, the district did an about face. They said no, the event is actually open to all students, and so we certainly were heartened to see that change, and what remind every school district around the state, because we've seen this increasingly all too often, that all events that school districts have to have must be open to all students of all races. You can't racially segregate. That's simply antithetical to our Constitution and what we believe as free people.
Well, and whatever it takes to get them to do the right thing. I'm so very grateful for Wisconsin
Absolutely.
Institute for Law and Liberty. And Lucas, all the best to you with this hearing, and please let me know how it goes, and
Will do.
just your perception of the day. That would be an interesting kind of check in, and we'll be on the edge of our seats. And I'm actually going to make a few calls because I see some of the sponsors of this bill, or at least those that, I presume that introduced it. And so I'm going to have some chit chats with them about it and find out who's behind who's behind the push to eliminate at least to regulate strictly regulate wedding barns. But thanks,
Absolutely.
Lucas Weber, again from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and he will be at our event in Ladysmith. I hope you're able to attend Saturday, September 23rd. Go out to getinvolvedwi.com for more information. Lucas, have a great day. Thank you so
Yep, you too,
much.
Mike.
We'll talk again
Take care.
soon. And again, go out to will-law.org if you want more information on that Citizens Guide to Open Government or any other information about their organization. And they are a not-for-profit organization, so you can always donate to them as well. I think they are a very worthy organization to give your hard-earned funds to. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back on the Meg Ellefson Show on WSAU.